My word of advice: I tend to be ahead of the curve on a handful of things, and this is one of them. From bedbound and broken to lean, strong, and healthy, here are 5 things that I learned. About 20 months ago, I was very sick and I was in bed 90% of my day for somewhere between 4 and 6 months. It was all a blur. And it has been a long, slow healing process. I'm much better today. Thank you for asking. But here are 5 lessons that I learned going from that painful, broken place to where I am today, where I'm thriving. Number 1, your value does not come from what you do, but rather who you are. Number 2, toxins might be wrecking or ruining your health and fitness progress. Number 3, the steel strength training principles work very well. You can build a substantial amount of muscle with a low volume approach. And number 5 is that healing your nervous system will fix a lot of things in your life. Now let's talk about each of these. Now look, all of these warrant their own video, blog, maybe even their own book. But we're just gonna skim the surface and then I'll do a deep dive into all of these later. I'll talk about my story, what made me sick, how Shelby and I pieced together, largely without the help of doctors, had to figure out how to heal and get better because nobody had answers. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about the things that I mentioned here. But I just want to give you guys an overview. I have learned a lot. So over the last 2 years. So here's where we go. Number 1, the most painful and arguably the most important lesson that I learned during this time is that my value and your value does not come from what you do. Your value comes from who you are. Prior to getting sick, I'm still a high energy guy, but I was a super high energy guy. I was lean, strong, and healthy. Thought I was reasonably good looking. And I had created success in my business. My wife got to stay home. I was a present husband and father. Looking at the scoreboard of life, I was winning. I was doing well. And maybe I didn't walk around pompous and arrogant, but I did feel inside a sense of both confidence, which is good, and arrogance, which is not good. But you see, I was allowing my success, the scoreboard of life, to define my value. And God said, my children will not be defined by what they do, but rather who they are, who I say they are. And so the Lord, in His mercy, stripped me of just about everything I could hang on to. My health, my energy, my strength, my physique. Praise God, I still have my health and my marriage and my family and my business today. But it felt like all of it could be taken away in 2 seconds. I was lying there on my bed, blood sugar crashing out all the time, multiple very low lows throughout the day, severe heart pain, being told by the doctor I'm at risk of a heart attack, blood pressure swings, anxiety and adrenaline rushes followed by crashes, and just sheer exhaustion. I was a hot mess. And I was terrified that I wasn't going to live. I was terrified, though she gave me no reason to believe this. The way that Shelby treated me during that time was a big piece of what God used to reinforce the idea that I am loved and valued for who I am and not for what I do. She beautifully embodied this during that time. But my performance mindset was like, I got this girl because I'm awesome, but now I suck. And so she could leave me. And so I was just terrified, and my business was, my team was amazing. And again, a gift from God there that the business kept going, but I was scared that I was going to lose my life. And if I didn't lose my life, I thought I might lose my wife. And if I didn't lose my wife, I thought I might lose my business. And just, again, everything that I clung to as This Is Nate Johnson was stripped away. All I was left was what I felt like was a shell of a man lying in that bed, terrified, fearful, feeling horrible all the time, basically. And I learned in that moment of darkness and pain, that my value does not come from who others say I am or from the scoreboard of life, if you will. It comes from who God says that I am. And it was really during that time. I've walked with Jesus most of my life, spent time in prayer regularly, reading the Bible regularly, but it just peeled back another layer of an onion. The intimacy this pain created in my relationship with Jesus is incredible, is the best thing that came out of this. And part of that is a true sense of value, worth, and identity that can only come from God, the Father, our Creator. So that's the first lesson that I learned. Very painful, but very valuable. Number 2, toxins might be wreaking havoc on your health and fitness. Toxins are the reason that I was sick. Horrible heart pain, crazy symptoms. We got to go into that in another video. But while most of you guys are not dealing with that same level of toxicity, and of course, I'm not talking about people who are dealing with an acute exposure to some kind of toxin and so a very toxic environment, they land in the hospital. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this is a fact, we're all exposed to low levels of toxins all the time, and God gave us a liver and kidneys, and we pee and poop and sweat and breathe out toxins all the time. So we're constantly, we're taking in toxins, we're, pushing them out, right? So all is well. And one thing I've heard is, if you have a liver and kidney and they're not failing and you don't have some horrible acute exposure, then you don't need to worry about toxins. Well, that is BS. It's not true, and it's a very elementary understanding. What is also factually true is that when the body has more toxins than it can deal with, the body will store those toxins in all kinds of different places in the body, but the best place to store them is fat. Fat is actually protective against toxins. So if your body is toxic, you're dealing with higher levels of toxins. Maybe they're not even showing up in blood tests. They're not showing up on blood tests, things like that. But your body will take those and start shoving them into fat cells as a protective mechanism. Anytime I was super, super sick, but I gained a bunch of weight, and now it all makes sense. It was a protective mechanism. The more weight that I gained, my symptoms decreased until my body was like, anyway, just had enough. It started to just shut down. It's like, we've gained all this fat. We've done all that we can do. Now we're dealing with even more toxins, like we're breaking. And so, remove myself from the source. Long story, it's gonna have to go into that in another video. But I would try to lose fat. I know how, of course, I'm the fitness guy. Grew up always being very lean, been through multiple dieting cycles where I've gotten very lean. I know how to lose fat, but anytime I would try to do it, even the smallest calorie deficit would flare up my symptoms like crazy. And it wasn't until we moved, removed ourselves from the source of what was bothering me, started aggressively doing things, not to aggressively detox, but aggressively or consistently supporting my own body's detoxification systems, that my body was like, okay, we're able to start releasing fat. We're safe and healthy to lose fat, okay? And so now I've been able to continue to get leaner. Now, again, most of you guys are not dealing with this on such a severe level, but I do think the majority, over 50%, this is Nate Johnson's claim, okay, is dealing with some low-level toxicity issues, and this is the reason why you are struggling to train hard, recover well, eat well, lose fat, okay? Yes, there's conversation to be had about discipline, but I think there's a lot more going on than just discipline issues. Talk about that in another video. Number 3, the steel strength training principles still apply and they work very, very well, okay? We've helped over 1,000 men and women get lean, strong, and healthy so they can do the things they love with the people they love. We've been doing this for over 10 years. I lived it out myself prior to getting sick. Now I'm living it out again. As I got better, I started strength training. Again, I started, we've always been eating well, but eating well, and then also staying active, walking, okay, or doing some other form of cardio that you enjoy. That's what you need. If you want to be lean, strong, and healthy so you can do the things you love with the people you love, I'm just doubling down on the fact, if you'll lift weights 2 to 4 days a week, 2 to 3 for most people, for about 30 to 45 minutes at a time, focus on getting stronger. Then if you'll eat well, and then if you'll stay active, you will look good, feel good, perform well, and be healthy. Number 4, I was shocked at just how well low volume, meaning not a lot of sets, is for building muscle, okay? I've always or not always, but most of my lifting career of the last 16 years that I've been lifting, minus a couple years that I was out from being sick, I have tended to be more of a low volume guy. But the amount of volume that I could tolerate, especially when I first started lifting again after being bedbound, was super low. Like I'm talking like I could do 1 set per muscle group per workout, and like that was fine. But if I did a second set, it would absolutely fry me for a couple days, okay? So not by choice, out of necessity, I just was hitting each muscle group every 1.5 to 2 days. So usually I would be doing like 3 to 4 workouts a week, alternating between upper lower, hence the 1.5 to 2 times per week frequency that I was hitting the muscles. But I was just doing like 1 set per muscle group per workout. We've recently bumped it up to 2. And so here's the deal. From what I understand, you and what I've seen in practice myself is that you can build muscle with as little as 1 set per muscle group done twice a week. I'm not saying that's optimal, but I am saying that's effective. And of course, as I've gotten better, my recovery capacity has increased. I've started training with more volume. But the shocking thing about strength training is that a little bit goes a long way. And I've said that for over a decade now, but it's shocking to me just how true it is. A very little bit goes a very long way. So, just to reiterate, I think everybody on the planet should be strength training. And you only need a few minutes. If all you have is a few minutes, the difference between that and doing nothing is night and day. Number 5, healing your nervous system will fix a lot of things in your life. So you have 2, I won't get too into the weeds here, but you got 2 branches of your nervous system, basically 2 pathways that'll be activated. You've got your sympathetic, which we call the fight or flight. That's like your get up and go nervous system. And then you've got your parasympathetic nervous system, which is like your rest and digest. Okay, we need both. All right, they keep us alive, they help us function. But most of us are living in a chronic sympathetic state. We have a hard time dropping down into a parasympathetic state. Now, our emotions, our health, all of this is tied into our nervous system. And one of the things that was true in these circles where people talk about toxins and you need to detox to get healthy, that has been my life story, and it's been so true. But one of the things that I hear is people are like, you have to detox, but you also have to heal your nervous system. And there's multiple programs out there that thousands and thousands of people swear it changed their life. And I looked into them, I tried them, and it just wasn't resonating with me. But then I came across this concept very recently in the last few months of, we're going to call it performance energy and king energy, or for the ladies, we'll call it queen energy, okay? So I have lived my whole life, and I didn't even realize it until I started understanding this concept, in performance energy. I've constantly been performing, not in a way to be fake, but like in a way that like I'm trying to achieve, I'm trying to become, I'm trying to prove to people around me that I'm or even to myself. I think that was the biggest thing, is I'd been trying to prove to myself, so I didn't even see it, that like I was good enough, rather than just resting in who God says that I am and letting my work and flow out of me, letting my work be worship. Instead of that, I was just doing, striving, and achieving, okay? But then I started learning about this, and I realized, man, I think a lot of people are doing this. So we've got different things that happen, right? If you're in the sympathetic state, you've got fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So like fight, I was fighting all the time, not fighting with people, but I was fighting to achieve the next thing, to do the next thing, lots of anxious energy and just like fighting to scratch and claw for the next level of success, the next rung of success. Showing up in a room and just performing for other people, not in a way to be fake, but I'm like, I'm super good at building rapport. I can read you exactly. I know exactly your emotional state, and I'm going to match what you need. And I was doing this because I wanted to serve people. I think also I was doing this because I wanted people to like me. I wanted to win people over. And again, I didn't even realize I was doing this, or that I was performing. That's fight. Then you've got flight. People who just, they're, situations that they don't feel like they can control. They want to, instead of, performing like I was doing, they hide. They want to run away. And then you've got people who will freeze. And they, you just kind of like shrink down, right? You want to shrink down into nothing. You don't want to take up much emotional space at all, right? So you're uncomfortable and you shrink down, okay? You hide. And then other people will fawn, people pleasing, right? They just go and try to appease everybody around them. All of these are sympathetic states. And that's like, I feel like that's like 90% of the population are operating out of that place. King energy or queen energy is operating from a place of humble confidence, knowing who you are, not from a place of pompous pride and arrogance, and not from a false humility, a low view of yourself, okay? Love the C.S. Lewis quote that it says, like, humility is not thinking less of yourself. You're amazing. You have unique gifts and talents. You are made in the image of the living God. You are incredible. So don't think less of yourself. That's a false humility, but think of yourself less. The king and queen isn't sitting there thinking about themselves, whereas in the sympathetic state you are. How am I being perceived? Am I safe by hiding? I'm going to run away so I don't get hurt. It's very self-focused, self-protective. You don't even realize that you're doing it. But the king and queen just show up in a space, and they're not trying to appease people. They're not trying to perform for people. They're not trying to hide either. They just show up fully as themselves, not obnoxiously to take up tons of emotional space, but they also don't hide. They just show up authentically as who they are. I understood all this concept made perfect sense. It clicked in a moment for me. I think for some it's a process, but it clicked in an instant. And I walked out of the room that I was in when I was learning about this, and I was forever a changed man. Instantly, everybody around me started acting different. Okay? But the biggest thing is that I felt my stress levels went through the floor, so much less stress, so much more effective, so much more confident, so much more peaceful. It was a big piece in helping me heal even more. My recovery from workouts, my performance in workouts has improved. And it's just because I am now operating, don't make fun of me, in what I call king energy, okay? And I want to see you do that as well. So we're going to be talking about this later on. It will literally change your life, your health, your marriage, your relationship with your kids, how you show up at work and other relationships, all the things. All right, this was a doozy, but these are the 5 big things that I learned going from broken, bedbound, fat, sick, and weak and full of shame, and now transitioning to a place of health, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I am lean, strong, and healthy, so I can do the things I love with the people that I love. And one of the things that I love to do, I am a coach, I am a teacher. I want to help you heal and thrive so you can be all that you were made to be. That's why I think God allowed me to walk this painful road, so that I can teach you things that you didn't even know that you needed to learn. We're going to keep banging the drums of the importance of strength training, nutrition, staying active, etc. But we're also going to step into helping you guys heal in other ways. Toxins, nervous system, all the things that you really need, but you just didn't know that you needed it. And one note on that, I'm just spitballing here off the cuff. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. But I'll tell you this. Now everybody is looking for strength training, okay? Steel strength training. I started this back in 2015. I chose the name in 2014. People are now seeking out strength training. Everybody and their mama and their grandma and their doctor is recommending strength training. When I started steel strength training, it was like pulling teeth to get people to strength train. We were ahead of the curve. And I'm just telling you here right now, with a bold confidence, a humble confidence, that we are ahead of the curve. People are already talking about these things in little pockets here and there, but we are ahead of the curve. So I would encourage you to listen to what I'm saying about toxins and about nervous system, because 10 years from now, you're going to remember Nate was right. And if you don't listen, you're going to wish that you had. So this is my word of advice. I tend to be ahead of the curve on a handful of things, and this is one of them.